Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to our instant reaction pod. Consider this your stoppage time as we review a thrilling 1-0 victory of our Lazio versus Juventus. I am your host, Sean McIntosh, joined by my co-host, Caleb Adams. Caleb, man, look, I know we were re-energized coming out of international break. We were excited to do this pod. It had been a little bit of time for us. We were excited for the start of a new era, a little bit of distance between some of the chaos with Lazio, and I know we were pumped for this, but wow. What a way to kickstart the Tudor era. How are you feeling?
Oh man, I'm elated. I thought, you talked about being excited and coming into this match, but by the 70th minute today, it was sort of getting the same sort of creeping feeling that we felt in a lot of these games in the past. And I was like, oh no, please, not again. But then the way it ended with that goal in literally the very last minute. Oh, and Guendouzi involved, Marusic coming out of nowhere, dunking on Juventus, crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. And you bring up a really good point that I want to make sure we'll spend some time on. Obviously, results are what matter. At the end of the day, nothing else matters but the results. And we got the results on this day. But when we spend a little bit of time talking about what we saw today, it is important, focusing on some of those areas. And there's still a piece of Lazio that, those changes that we hope to see aren't going to just happen overnight. So we did see a lot of those same things start to creep in, and we also saw some a re-energized Lazio, but we had seen some of that before. But let's jump into our recap as we start to dive into this one. So, we saw a very interesting starting 11, one that I personally had a ton of questions about. Immediately, you see Tati Castellanos leading the line over a healthy Ciro Immobile. You see Guendouzi on the bench. You see Pedro starting in this one. You see, obviously, a change in formation brings in Casale, so he's in the starting lineup. The obvious change with Mandas over an injured Provedel, but certainly a lot of question marks, at least that I had, about some of the decisions that were made. And this one started off really positively for Lazio, as they so often did, even under Sarri. You saw a team that was high pressing. You saw a team that created turnovers. We also saw a very typical Juve performance, one that likes to play in a low block, one that has a lot of question marks in how they decide to advance and attack the ball, certainly making it easier for the opposition. And we saw a side that made it easy on us in our center backs, not really having to find themselves in too many threatening positions. And we saw pretty early into this one, 17-minute mark, Felipe Anderson does a really nice job of stabbing a ball down to Tati, who is inside of the box, and sees his shot going wide. Not but 3 minutes later, Felipe Anderson, again in a playmaking role with a nice little 1-2 to Tati's credit. Felipe finding the ball back to Tati, who is in the box, again goes wide in a position that you simply demand better from. 22nd minute mark, we see Szczesny with an egregious error, plays a ball, what looks to be attempted over a Pedro, simply chips it right into his chest. Pedro tries to play it. Ultimately, it finds its way to Kamada, who handles a quirky pass. By the time he tries to take a shot, it is simply blocked out of dangerous way. Felipe finds himself in the 26-minute mark, taking a crack of his own with a really nice save by Szczesny. We finished the first half with a big save by Mandas in the 41st minute. The first time we see Juve with any sort of threat at all, coming off of a free kick. And then it closes out at 0-0. We start the second half with Juve seemingly The aggressor finding themselves at halftime, 50-second mark. Mandas with a big save on Cambiaso. And then we see the match kind of going back and forth. Lazio owning quite nearly 70% of the possession through this match. A couple big substitutions that ultimately have a part to play in the 80th minute. We see Cheeto coming into that second half. 80th minute, we see Vecino and Guendouzi coming in as well for Kamada and Cataldi. And then we see Luis Alberto making his first appearance under Tudor in the 84th minute for Zaccagni. A couple opportunities towards the end of the match. Luis finds Vecino. Vecino takes a crack just at the edge of the box, loads of space in front of him, and he ultimately drags the ball wide. No threat at all. And then Luis Alberto has a crack from distance that deflects, trickles wide, but then we are really hard done by not being given a corner kick in that moment. And then Felipe Anderson plays a brilliant ball to Ciro Immobile and in space. And this is where you see, now to the credit of Bremer, Cheeto has always had, as many attackers do, have his problems with Bremer. Bremer is a strong center back. He has a center back with a ton of pace, but you do see some of those older legs with Ciro Immobile in that moment, where he's simply just not able to get by him. It looks to be all said and done for a match that appears to be winding down until Guendouzi plays a brilliant cross into Marusic, who just slam dunks it with a nice header for the match-winning goal. All 3 points to Lazio. When you take a look at the statistics here, 64% possession to Lazio to Juve's 36. Expected goals, 1.11 for Lazio, 0.58 for Juve. 16 total shots for Lazio to Juve's 9. 4 of those shots on target. Juve with 3 on target. Lazio with 1 big chance missed. And I say all of that to lead up to the question, Caleb, how are you going to head and describe this one in 3 words or less?
I'm just going to use 2 words. I'm going to use new life. And I mean this in a lot of different ways. New life in terms as a team because of the result, because of the new coach. It sort of flips the page of this into the new chapter, right? It really sort of solidifies, all right, this is a new era, gives that confidence. Also, new life to players who just weren't rated under Sadi, or players that played a lot under Sadi and just weren't living up to their ability. Marusic, for example, Marusic actually thought had a pretty darn good game overall as a wingback. And someone like Kamada got a chance to come into the game and prove what they can do. At the same time, with that new life comes new opportunities, right? And someone like Tati got the start, but didn't make the most of it. So those are my words to describe the match.
Yeah. So, and we'll get to those individual performances. For me, real simple, patient Lazio rewarded. We saw a side that that was patient in a lot of their approach. A side that has so many times been just hard done, even with a similar approach. And we've seen a side, this just, you said it just started to feel like the same old Lazio, in that we start off really well. Couple of shots don't go our way. Again, Tati failing to finish, and Juve is just a side that relishes these kinds of games. It makes it really difficult, and then all it takes is one opportunity. They find the back of the net, and here we are, heads down, and we're having a very different conversation about what we saw today. And instead, I really appreciated the patience, while frustrating at times, really hard to break down that Juve side. But they were smart in their passing. They didn't open up themselves to any counterattacks. They really limited those opportunities. When Juve found themselves in counter-attacking positions, You saw the likes of Mario Gila, for
Yeah.
example, 60th minute chasing down Moise Kean. Just you see the pace and brilliance of a player like Mario Gila, slide tackling in the box, winning the ball back, cutting down any threat in those moments, really frustrating Juve. So it was a side ultimately that was rewarded for a lot of that smart defensively. I thought the way that they took an approach that really seemed like they were playing two different formations based on when they were in attack versus in defense, and some of that flexibility. I was really impressed with how some of the players were able to grasp that after 3 years under Sadi. So
super impressed.
What do you think ultimately led to this? Was it simply a new manager bump? Was it some of the tactical changes that were made? Was it simply down to a couple individual players? What do you think ultimately lent this performance?
I think a new manager boost is, of course, a factor, because everyone has something to prove. It's a new slate, new life, as I said. But I also think you got to give some credit to Tudor, who it seemed very clear to me that the players knew exactly what they had to do. Like this did not look like a team that had just transitioned into a new manager playing a new formation and a quicker, more direct style. It's still patient, but when those opportunities came to break, we pushed hard. We were really aggressive with that. So I think it has to do with, of course, a new manager bump, but also Tudor being able to communicate what he needs and what he wants in such a short manner of time. And I think the international break definitely helped with that, for sure. And I think that's what I got to give credit to, is it was very clear what we wanted to do. And we were unfortunate not to have more goals, to be frank. And so, big kudos to the new coach.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like instructions were very clear. And again, as I said, I was really impressed because I thought we approached this one, and there were times I texted you, and it looked like we were playing a 4-4-2 at times, or it looked like in attack it looked like three in the back, and you saw players like Felipe Anderson playing a lot closer to the attacker. I thought I really loved what I saw in when we took that shape. So, I mean, it was from how he set up this team, particularly against a side like Juve that was welcoming all of that pressure. Mm-hmm. And then again, just defensively, we were extremely sound and we didn't make mistakes, which ultimately this side has simply been punished way too often by mistakes. Mm-hmm. And those mistakes usually come at the hands of just individuals. So, from been harsh on players oftentimes this year, and we obviously criticized the manager, but I thought all sides played their part today, and the players absolutely, for the most part, played their roles perfectly. So let's talk about the players and who stood out for you as your man of the match.
Yeah, this is a good one. We've had a lot of weeks where we feel like no one deserves to be man of the match, but I thought we had some pretty great performances today across the board. But I got to say, today we saw Mario Gila's ability to just affect the game in every phase. I was really excited. I know people were a bit hesitant about Tudor, and including myself. But one thing that stood out to me when I was doing research, and I made a whole thread about it, was like how aggressively he used center backs. As you saw today, Casale was making runs, Gila. And when I saw that, I was like, man, someone like Gila because he already loved doing that to begin with. But now the whole system is designed around that. So I think one of the biggest benefactors of Tudor coming in was Gila, because it really does squeeze his full potential out of him, right? We saw him bombing forward in the attack, creating chances. Juve didn't really know what was going on. Like, do we mark him? Do we switch man? Like, what do we do? And it created problems. And on defense, and we saw the recovery run that he did to reach Keane, and he was just everywhere on the field and was excellent. I mean, I can't think of a single mistake he made. He was just absolutely excellent every way today.
Yeah, I loved what I saw from all of our center backs, and that pressure was seen really early. I think, Romagnoli often doesn't get a ton of the credit because, when you compare him to a player like Gila very visible. He stands out, right? You see this darting run by a center back who has incredible pace, and it you can see it, and it stands out, and it flies off of the screen. Or you have moments, as we talked about, that 60th minute where he's chasing down Moise Kean, and it's a very Maldini-esque slide tackle to win the ball. And then, somebody like Romagnoli is very calm and collected, never really out of position. But I thought the aggressiveness from those center backs early on really sent a statement. You saw Romagnoli immediately fouling Keane high up the pitch and just letting him know it was going to be a physical presence. Like, they were going to press, they were going to be aggressive, sending a really direct message, which I really thought ultimately played a part in how that match was played. And, Gila was one of my contenders for man of the match. But then you've got somebody like Marusic, who really strong performance, nothing that really leapt off the page, exactly what you want from a Marusic, and obviously has a stake to claim when he finishes a game winner in the 94th minute. But for me, my man of the match, a player that we have often criticized, is Felipe Anderson. And I thought what we saw from him today, the positives were much of the same positives when we think about him, and it's the work rate, the defensive duties that he has. But today in attack, I mean, he should have had 2 assists, could have had a goal if not for a big save by Szczesny. He was lively. He was all over the place. I mean, those balls that he was playing to Tati were fantastic. His ability to just connect. Again, playing in a different role. This is a player throughout his time at Lazio, dating back to his first tenure, that has played, in a number 10 role, has played as a wing back, has played as a winger, has played as a false 9, is now playing in a position where he's asked to do multiple different roles and positions within the same match. So he is just a fantastic player, and for him to take on this new role and immediately create for it, it was just a little bit hard done that he didn't get to walk away with the statistical credit at the end of it. So for me, and for my money, Felipe Anderson, man of the match. Shifting focus now, and I'll start off because the player at the end of the receiving end of some of those beautiful Felipe Anderson balls was Tati for 2 of those in the first half, where my bidone, because this was a match that was that should have been really hard to figure out who a bidone was, because I think by and large most of the players played really, really well. It was hard to find a bidone contender outside of Tati Castellanos, which is really unfortunate because, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was the last match out of international break that Tati bagged 2 goals, and what we had hoped would have been kind of the start to something. And for everybody on Lazio, international break came at a nice time, except for Tati. And so just thought, again, it was just, it's unfortunate because he did so many things again well that you want to commend, and his link and play, and we don't have those opportunities, particularly that second one with a nice 1-2 combination play, and it's all there, and he fights for the team, all good things, and I still see a player in there. But at the end of the day, you have to bury those chances, because this could have been one of those matches that we were punished, and we're lucky to not have been. So do you have anybody different as your man of the match?
Man, I'm kind of in a similar situation. Like even Tati missing those chances, I thought he was like really good. Like we were looking so sharp with those 1-2 quick passes up front, and it was really giving Juve problems early on. So, but yeah, I just, at the end of the day, strikers will be graded. If Cheeto's missing those chances, we're also saying the same thing, right? So he's a striker. You got to put him away. And like you said, you really would have hoped that scoring those 2 goals sort of gives him that confidence to start, getting a little more consistency in the finishing. And there were really good chances. I mean, they're not super easy, but if you're someone that's trying to sort of stake your claim and show, hey, I can be the guy at striker for this team, those are chances you got to put away. And, time is sort of ticking for Tati, even though he is a player, in MLS, he had his growing pains when he first arrived at New York City, and then New York City believed in him. They stuck with him, and he rewarded them really greatly with a lot of goals, a lot of assists, and one of the best players in the league. But will fans have that same sort of patience in this scenario? Probably not as much, because what, 17 million it was that he cost. It's a $6 million player, which is maybe not a lot on the global scale, but for Lazio is a lot of money. And so, will the team have patience? I'm really curious to know what Lotito's maybe thinking about him. So he needs to be he has a chance here. If he gets a little run of games, he has a chance to redeem himself and really say, hey, guys, I can do this for next season. But it's not starting off strong. And we thought it started with those 2 goals.
Yep. Yeah, and this is just this is a note for everybody on Lazio, right? This is the benefit of having a manager come in at this point of the season, and we think there's not a ton to play for, but when you look at the table, there still is. But everybody's going to be playing for their roles, and Lotito has stated that all contract negotiations with every player are placed on pause until the end of this season. And so a lot of players have a lot to fight for. And Tati is one of those. And I will always continue to say most players struggle in their first season in Serie A, particularly strikers. We've seen it before. Now we've got to hope that it starts to translate here. I'm not at that point of giving up on him entirely, because there's enough there. But man, does it get frustrating when he's not finishing.
And on top of that, I'll add, it's also a bit because you said strikers tend to have the hardest time adapting to Serie A, which makes a lot of sense with the defensive structure. It's very difficult to find those openings. But I want to add on top of that strikers also are hurt the most by poor team performances.
Right.
No one is more dependent on service. No one is more dependent on the players behind them than a striker is. And of course, some of the chances that he's missed are inexcusable. Straight up, I'm not denying that. But the team as a whole has suffered. And and I gotta say, if Tudor has gotten this team looking like this and disorganized after a week and a half, 2 weeks, it's exciting. I think to see what maybe it looks like with a month. Given the whole summer.
Yeah, and look, there was a nice little bump from a lot of players. Now, still some work to do. What did you think of Kamada's performance?
I thought that I was disappointed to see him start so low. It looked that he was very much playing sort of this facilitator role.
Yeah,
it was him dropping back instead of Cataldi, which is interesting. And he was excellent. I thought he was. He's really sharp on the ball. He has really good awareness of where the players are, and he's quick to play it. But I want a player with that sort of caliber playing a little higher up. I would love to see Kamada in a more playmaking role. I would like to see Kamada playing. The announcer said he scored 16 goals and 7 assists in all comps last season. This is a guy who can score over 20 goal contributions a season, right? Or contribute to that. I would love to see, and maybe things changed with Ravella, I don't know, but I would love to see him more in an advanced position. But for what he was asked to do today, considering he's not played many minutes, he's probably a little rusty. I thought he was solid.
Yeah, that's the word I would use to describe. I thought he was solid. Of course, I want to see more, which is probably unfair for a player that hasn't played a ton of minutes this year. But I was hopeful. I thought it was a solid performance, something to build on. I think there's some flexibility and options now. It will be interesting to see what happens once Rovella gets back. Of course, made the note, Guendouzi, coming off the bench. I saw some notes on social that perhaps the thought process was with some games coming up looming that are huge with Coppa Italia and a chance to win a trophy and playing Juve in that, and the derby coming up, that perhaps we were saving some of these players. Guendouzi came off of international break. Now, we'll see, but I think Guendouzi has to play a starting role in this side. I think Rovella also has to, and so it will be interesting with the midfielders that he goes to. Given this new formation, there's probably going to be an odd man out, and so Today it was Luis Alberto that was the notable figure out of it. Obviously came in, but we've seen Luis Alberto play the role of super sub before at a really high level. So we'll see.
I'll also add too. I want to ask your opinion. I was a bit surprised to see both. Like Zaccagni played practically wingback, right? Today, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, but I mean, he was pretty. I mean, because I was worried about that. I know I messaged you that I didn't. And I think you thought maybe he would play a little bit more central. I was concerned because because the success that we saw with him was when he is out wide. He's got a really strong right foot, so when he's able to cut in, and it's he's a player that you just know what he's going to do, and he's still able to pull it off. Time and time again, particularly last season when he saw himself in double figures in goals and played such a big role in this Lazio side, ultimately earning himself a call up to the national side. So I was happy that he still found himself in those spaces that he's so comfortable in.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's another player though that with some of these shifts and formations is going to have to be a little bit more versatile, and I think if he's able to, it's just going to lend himself to more opportunities in Euro because Spalletti is looking as if he's going to make some shifts and some tactical shifts that I think will lend Zaccagni more opportunities if he can figure out how Tudor wants him to play.
No, for sure. And I do also want to touch on one more thing. At least regarding like sort of differences I saw in the team. And it's actually a point that you made earlier. You pointed out that the center backs were much more aggressive, but the team as a whole were clearly instructed to be a lot more aggressive overall. Felipe was going in for some interceptions. We saw every player on the field going in hard on these interceptions, having that intensity, making that jump early. And I think that really helped us create more opportunities this match as well. I think a lot of opportunities came from the situations where in the past we've been really passive about, but under Tudor, a clear instruction that I'm seeing is, hey, now, be the first to that ball, anticipate that ball. It's okay if you take that extra step because we have an extra center back, right? And I think that considering this, again, this is the first time they played under Tudor. I was really impressed with just how in sync the whole team was as a whole.
Yep. Yeah. Which again is why it made it so difficult to find a bidone outside of Tati, who I guess really just made it easy for us. Well, when we look ahead again to this fixture list, and first taking a live look at the table. So for those listening on our audio platforms, this is recorded immediately after the match. This is Saturday, March 30th. We've got Lazio currently in 7th place, 46 points in the table. This comes also off of the heels of a Napoli defeat to Atalanta earlier today in a match that we would have liked to have seen finish at a draw. But it does create a little bit more distance. Atalanta for us is at 50 points, so 4 points ahead of us. Roma still yet to play their match this week at that what we think will be the final Champions League spot if Serie A is awarded with 5, but Roma at 51 points. And you can probably pencil them in. They're playing Lecce on Monday for 3 points there. So schedule ahead of us is really important because we still are in this, and we are also in a battle for a trophy still. So semifinals of Coppa Italia, the second leg sees us playing Juve again on the 23rd. No, I'm sorry. I'm looking way ahead. This is the first leg this Tuesday on April 2nd. First leg against Juve of the Coppa Italia semifinals before the derby next Saturday. And that derby is always important, but now I think it is that pivotal point of the season where you're going to see one side really stake a claim to European places and possibly Champions League, and the other side go the other direction. So any final words from you, Caleb?
Excited for the rest of the season. It was kind of demoralizing sometimes recording these. It's like what are we talking about? Like, what are we supposed to be discussing? What's next for us? We have the cup to win, but it sort of was a bit I'm gonna be like stagnant of like, what now?
Yeah.
But now we have
Plenty to play for. Plenty to play for. Just the emotional side of it, gives us a little bit of life, the newness, the interest in seeing what our future is going to look like, how players respond to Tudor. Obviously, mathematically, still in this race, a chance to win a trophy. There's plenty to play for, plenty of reasons to be excited, and we'll be there every step of the way to cover it live, instant reactions for some of these matches, for all of these matches coming up. And we hope to celebrate with you all. If you don't subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. We're trying to grow this page. If you don't like seeing us, subscribe, follow us on all of our audio platforms, your Spotify's and your Apples, and wherever you get and listen to your audio platforms. So, or podcasts. Follow us on social media. We're on every single one of those. But here we are, a new era, a big win. Sempre Forza Lazio.